In today's world of uncertainty and constant change, a compelling story can provide meaning and insight. It can help us make sense of our world and our existence in it. Some stories are common across many cultures and span the length of human existence. As such, they reflect some basic human needs, as if the Creator interwove our DNA with some common threads that connect all of our souls together. One such story is the hero's journey, a tale of personal enlightenment and collective renewal. The hero's journey is a story of individual and corporate transformation, a change of identity. In embarking on the journey, we must leave the world of certainty and courageously journey to a strange new place, fraught with risks, a place where there are problems that require us to think in new ways.
Well, that's what's so interesting to me about what God's doing at Evergreen and what God has been doing over the 80 plus years of its existence, is that unlike a lot of churches, it continues to become, right? It's like, I think the church keeps becoming something that the previous generation never anticipated. Right? So the fact that the three of us are having dinner tonight is a part of that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about a little bit tonight was, we've been talking about the hero's journey, and I think the idea of the church being on a hero's journey, and clearly what I've just heard tonight from all of us underscores that. But like the church can't go on the journey of the hero if the individual people aren't. And from what we've all been studying and hearing, to go on a hero's journey is it's kind of a weird thing. And so, like, for you, Paul, you, Michelle, myself, it's like, where was it in our life, and it doesn't necessarily coincide with the day we became a Christian, where we just kind of woke up to this sense of calling, that some higher power, something bigger than ourselves was saying, you can't just have that ordinary life anymore. I'm calling you to do something for me, and it's important, and you have to decide whether you're going to do it or not. I mean, can you relate to that? Mm-hmm. Like, when did it happen for you?
Well, I grew up in the church my whole life, so, I don't think I can even pinpoint a time where I became Christian. It was kind of just something that continued along for most of my life. But I think for me, I have been thinking about it a lot because of the Hero's Journey sermon series, and knowing we were going to, meet tonight. I'm like, I got to figure out, where did I already start on my journey? Is God calling me to do something now, that I need to step out and do this now? And I think for me, when I started on my Hero's Journey, where I kind of had that paradigm shift and things just changed in my head, was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was involved in the hip hop ministry.
That's
and
right.
I was. You saw me dance. I met 2 young girls at the time, Angelica and Rosie, my girls, and I started, getting to know them better. We just kind of took an immediate liking to each other and started talking after, each day they'd come running up to me and give me a hug, and it was just awesome. We just had that instant bond. Over the months, I started feeling this nudging from God. Like, he's telling me I'm supposed to be doing something with these girls. And I'm like, me, I'm kind of an introvert. Nobody believes me, but I am. I'm actually pretty introverted. So talking to new people or, actively pursuing relationships with people kind of makes me nervous.
Really?
And yeah, I know nobody ever believes that. But, I kind of felt like God was saying, look, I handed these 2 girls to you on a silver platter. You already have a great bond together. I want you to kind of pursue that relationship further. I want you to be a friend to them. I want you to be a mentor to them. I want you to just have a lifelong friendship with these girls and, just try and make a difference in their lives. And I feel like that was probably the start of my hero's journey, because it made me realize at that point that, it's so much more than just me.
Yeah, I often wondered about you, Ken. I've seen such a change and transformation in your life and theology, and here you are in a position of leadership there at Evergreen. I mean, it must take a lot of courage on your part. What motivates you to make these transformations?
Yeah, my wife wonders that too. Gosh, when I've been thinking about how I would capture my own faith journey as a hero's journey, and there's a lot of different places where I think that is appropriate. And when I first went into ministry, the whole idea of the church that I felt called to pastor was very scary because the church didn't exist. It was an English-speaking, American-born Chinese church, and I had all kinds of well-intentioned older Chinese pastors tell me, "You're crazy. You better go learn how to speak Chinese. That's how you're going to fit into the existing system." So I didn't certainly have this language back then, but I look back and I think, gosh, for this young 20-something person in seminary to be kind of shaking his fist at the people that were already in place and saying, "You're wrong, you're wrong." I don't know how this is going to work, but that's what I feel like I'm called to do. And that's how I found Evergreen, actually. It's because I didn't find exactly what I was envisioning, but I found something kind of close. Yeah, right, yeah. And so in the midst of doing that, I feel like my hero's journey has been kind of herky-jerky and stop and start. So I kind of got established, began to learn this Chinese-Japanese thing. But roundabout in the 1990s, I think I was going through midlife crisis, and it's ahead of you. But yeah, I was just really starting to wonder about the validity of the things that I had done and the way I was doing things, the things. And I am finding, in talking to other pastors, that's kind of a common thing. But what's uncommon, I'm finding out, is they don't all necessarily do something different because of that, right? But for me, it was just like, wow, we have this middle-class, suburban, typical kind of church that makes people comfortable, and I'm comfortable, and all of that. And then God started making me really uncomfortable with just things that I had never really spent much time on. Things like racial reconciliation, things like even socioeconomic reconciliation, and issues of culture and justice and those kind of things. And the fears that I had were, oh man, if I start talking and preaching like this is not going to sound like I've sounded. And so there's going to be a lot of people pretty upset with me because they've pretty much figured me out. And I had to really make a choice. And it wasn't an overnight thing. I had to make a choice of, okay, I have this much time left, God willing. Am I just going to keep trying to make everybody happy? Or am I going to focus more sharply on trying to make God happy, if that makes any sense? And I felt like, wow, the more I'm getting in touch with this, the risk of making people unhappy seemed far less risky than making God unhappy with me.
Still be with him for an eternity.
Yeah,
so,
right,
it's
exactly.
that.
Yeah, right. So, but it's not been a journey where the fears haven't been realized, and I know there's got to be people who are still kind of trying to figure out what happened, and I would like to say I'm more obedient. That's the simplest I can put it. So yeah, a lot of the things that our church is doing, and the fact that we're here, multi-generations, multicultural, multi-ethnic, that's just validation to me that I'm not as crazy as, I won't say some people think, but even sometimes I think that this could actually happen. And now, yeah, I just marvel at just the transformation that is occurring in the church that's matching the transformation that's occurring in me. So very much that's where I feel like that's my hero's journey, is there's not necessarily a big cheering section, right? There may be people kind of scratching their head and trying to figure out what in the world are you up to. And it's a lonely time. I think we can all identify with that, to some degree. I mean, can you identify with that?
Yeah, I think that's very, very important what you're sharing, because I can see the tremendous transformation gradually taking place, And I was thinking back and when we started the Asian American Baptist Caucus.
That's when I met you.
Yeah. And that was difficult because the denomination dominated by the Caucasian missionaries and all, they felt, well, you are part of the family, we'll take care of you and we'll meet your needs, and whatever we have is yours. But we said, no, the work among Asian people will never grow unless we take the initiative and become leaders and develop our own, you might say, agenda for the Japanese Asian folks. So I had to fight with our whole denomination and say, appreciate your paternalism and tokenism and love, but we want to call our own shots as we think of the future. And so we started Asian Caucus, and that gave us the clout, you might say, to start opening up Asian churches and take leadership and develop that. I think that's very
Get people
important,
like
but
Pastor
that
Ken.
was that transformation.
Yeah. And see, he's being very modest, but he was pastoring a church in Seattle at the time, Japanese Baptist church, and then he took on the first national Asian Ministries director position when the caucus was formed. And so he split time between going back to Pennsylvania and running starting and doing all the battling. And so at that time, that's when we met. And I was that, punky 24-year-old kid with this crazy idea of a church that didn't exist. And I'm actually one of the first people that the just birthed Asian Caucus discovered and got me scholarship money. And that's how I found Evergreen, is because I had gone to an Asian Caucus event when I was still in Northern California, and I met some of the folks. So, Paul, you were really a pioneer. You were really on a hero's journey. And I'm sure it was very lonely. Most of the people in the local church could just want to keep their head down and just keep going, but you were out there fighting the fight.
Well, I was thinking about that one of the things, and I too worked on a doctorate on identity, Japanese American identity, and the ethnic pluralism, and the identity that we have from God. And all those thoughts came through me. I studied about it, concentrated on that, and I recognized that we have to recognize who we are. God has made us, as such. Yet we must believe that that is true of everyone else. So we learn to respect other, but we're not going to say we're going to do away with our identity or ethnicity. But we must work together in the pluralism of all these identities, and that can be the colony or the faith community.
Yeah, faith community.
You can,
See, and that's what we're calling the Faith Village, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So when you come back, you've come back to the church for about the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You come back, we're using different language maybe than what you worked on in your doctorate, but must sound pretty familiar.
Exactly. And, and that's the future. I think it's the future, what you're doing now. Like you're feeling very much at home there with this mostly Asian folks, but I think that's the future. We just have to work on it and keep at it. And that's the village that we're talking about, the Faith Village. And that takes courage. You have to be a leader. And that's a hero's journey, a pilgrimage, yeah. It's wonderful.